We were passing the mashed potatoes when my sister-in-law lifted her glass and smiled. Ordinary Sunday, roast chicken, my mom's playlist kids arguing over crayons. Then Kara said, clear as a bell, since we're moving into Nara's place next month, I'll need the primary bedroom knocked out to fit a king and built-ins. My fork hovered. The room tilted. I made a choice in that breath. I wasn't going to hand over my keys. I wasn't going to keep the peace by burning my life down. And if you stick with me, I'll show you the dark little machine my family had built to make that happen, one I'd been feeding for years without noticing. Drop a comment with where you're listening from. This one gets messy. My name is Nara Quinn. I'm 33. I manage timelines and budgets for a clean energy startup, spreadsheets by day, stubborn hope by night. 3 months ago, I bought a narrow brick 2-flat on Birch Street. 2 units, mirrored layouts, separated by a century-old stairwell that creaks like it learned English late. My plan was simple. Live downstairs, rent upstairs, let the rent punch the mortgage in the face. People online call it house hacking. I called it breathing room. Getting there wasn't pretty. After college, I juggled a full-time analyst job and weekend gigs, SAT tutoring, grocery delivery, even a season guiding museum tours because it came with free coffee. I skipped trips, bought secondhand everything, and learned to love YouTube repair videos. Every deposit into the Birch Fund was a tiny rebellion. 5 years, 58,000 down. Closing day, I ugly cried on the sidewalk with the keys in my palm, while a neighbor watered begonias and pretended not to watch. My family never got it. Money comes and goes, my mom, Yvonne, would say. My dad, Peter, preferred stories of how our people share. Translation: my younger brother, Damon, shared my money and everyone else's patience. He's 31, charming, allergic to alarm clocks. Kara married him at 29 and insists the world is cruel to creative spirits. Their twins, Sky and Jamie, are 5 and ferociously cute. Also good at weaponized whining. None of that is their fault. They're the innocents here. 2 weeks before that dinner, Mom had asked Breezy as a weather report, "How's your upstairs?" I told her the tenant, a nurse named Priya, had accepted a fellowship in Seattle. End of the month, she'd be gone. I was already drafting a listing. Mom hummed. Perfect timing, she said. I missed the warning in those 2 words. Back at the table, Kara spread printed photos like a realtor on caffeine. Mood boards. Arches opened between rooms. A pastel play zone where my office is. A kitchen refresh I could not afford. Damon avoided my eyes and stuffed bread in his mouth like carbs were a shield. Hold on. My voice sounded calm to me. That surprised me. Who told you you're moving into my building? Mom squeezed my wrist the same way she used to when she wanted me to hand over my allowance to cover Damon's broken phone. Sweetheart. Family first. Your brother's hours got cut again and their lease is expiring. They need stability. You have space. Dad leaned back, satisfied. We decided it's best. You're one person. You don't need 2 bedrooms and an office. I live there, I said. And the other unit is how the mortgage works. Kara's smile sharpened. We're thinking bigger, babe. The whole 2-flat makes more sense. Kids upstairs. We'll take your garden unit, she actually winked, and you can stay with your friend. What's her name? The one with the big couch. Her name is Dina. She's my anchor. Kara knows that. No, I said. The table went cold. Dad's jaw flexed. Mom's eyes grew wet on cue. Ooh. Damon stared at his plate. The twins whispered secrets to each other like a tiny jury. No, Dad repeated, testing the word like it might break. I'm not switching units. I'm not giving you a free apartment. I'm not renovating anything for someone else's Pinterest. Mom frowned. You make good money. You'll figure it out. Eventually, we'll pay something, Damon said quickly, still not looking at me. Once we're back on our feet. When is eventually, I asked. And what's something? Is there a lease, a deposit? Who fixes things? Who pays utilities? What happens when you don't? Silence. Kara sighed dramatically. You're being so literal. It's property law, I said. Literal is the point. Dad's voice slid into the register that used to end arguments when I was 12. Nara, we're not negotiating. We're informing you. Hand over the keys by Friday so your mother can schedule the contractor. I looked around that table and saw the gears finally, how everyone's roles clicked together. Dad the judge, Mom the plea, Damon the baby, Kara the director, me, the reliable one. The one who smooths pays, solves nods, and apologizes. They expected that girl to show up tonight on command. She didn't. Here's my decision, I said, my hand steadying on my napkin. The upstairs will be leased at market rate to a qualified tenant. The downstairs is my home. No one is moving in. No one is knocking down walls. This isn't a committee asset. My name is on the deed. Mom's tears turned to frost. After everything we've done for you, this is who you are. I pictured the couch I bought with cash. The floorboards I sanded until midnight with a rented sander that tried to yank my arms off. The email from the bank saying clear to close. The first night I slept there, listening to the old radiators hiss like they had opinions. I breathed. This is who I am, I said. Kara leaned forward too sweet. We already gave notice, babe. Be reasonable. You don't want your family on the street. There it was, the trap, the hero costume they were motioning toward. Put it on Nara. Save us, Nara. Pay for it, Nara. I stood. The chair groaned across hardwood. I'm leaving before I say something I can't take back. Dad's voice boomed. You walk out that door, and you walk out on family. I didn't flinch. I'm walking toward my boundary. On the drive home, my phone pinged nonstop. A wall of messages from relatives who hadn't liked a single photo of my house, but suddenly had opinions about it. Family helps family. You have 2 bedrooms. Kids need space. One text from Kara arrived last, a detailed list of must-do upgrades with prices pulled from a fantasy world and a note. We can split 50-50. At a red light, I laughed. It sounded wild. Then I stopped laughing because my hands were shaking. I pulled into the tiny driveway behind my building and sat there with the engine ticking as it cooled. The back porch light cast a pale triangle over the stairs I had painted in the exact shade of green I wanted because this was mine, my home, my risk, my reward. I changed both locks that night. Not because I believed my family would break in, because for the first time, I believed they might test the door. Dina came over with soup and cinnamon ice cream, like I was sick. She didn't say I told you so. She listened. When I ran out of words, she said 2 things. You're not crazy. Then document everything. So I opened a new folder on my laptop and typed a title that made my stomach twist. Birch Street Protection Plan. I had no idea then how much I would need it. By morning, guilt tried to climb into bed with me like a stray cat, soft, insistent purring in my ear. I fed it facts. Mortgage due on the 1st. Insurance on the 15th. Taxes looming. My budget with and without rent. Numbers don't care if you're the good daughter. Numbers don't blink. At 7:12 a.m., my mom called. No hello. We'll move in Sunday. Your father says you'll see sense. I changed the locks, I said. Silence widened on the line. Then a hiss. Peter will not like that. Peter can learn to like boundaries. I surprised myself. My voice didn't shake. You're making this hard, she said, playing the old piano with one finger. Guilt, guilt, guilt. No, I said. I'm making it clear. She hung up without goodbye. On my way to work, I stopped at a cafe and opened my laptop. New listing draft. Fresh photos. Clear rules. No sublets. No alterations without written permission. Income verification required. It was all boring and adult. It felt like armor. A man at the next table, gray hoodie-kind eyes, glanced up as I rubbed my temples. You look like you're negotiating peace, he said. War, I said, but I'd settle for peace. He smiled. Good luck. I didn't know then he would matter later. For now, he was just a stranger offering a small needed kindness. By lunch, the listing was live. By dinner, the first applications hit my inbox. And by bedtime, I understood this wasn't just about a 2-flat on Birch Street. This was about a lifetime of being the one who bends, the one who budgets, the one who makes room. Tomorrow I would stop bending. Tomorrow I would call a lawyer. I kept my promise to myself. At 9:02 a.m., I dialed a real estate attorney named Lara Chen that Dina swore by. Lara answered on the second ring voice, brisk, not unkind. Tell me the facts, she said. I gave her the short version. The property, the plan, the ambush at dinner, the new locks, the listing going live. My parents' decree. Kara's must-do upgrades with emoji. Lara didn't sigh. She didn't soft pedal. Good instincts on the locks, she said. Second, put everything in writing. No phone calls. Email only. Third, post a simple notice in the common stairwell, private property, no entry without owner permission. Fourth, lease the vacant unit to qualified tenants immediately. An occupied unit is your best shield. What if they show up anyway? I asked. Then you don't engage. You call me an if needed the non-emergency line. Don't argue in your doorway. Don't let anyone just leave some boxes inside. You don't want them categorized as occupants by behavior. The word occupants scraped at me. They're my family. Family becomes fact patterns, Lara said, voice level. Protect yourself like you don't know their last names. When we hung up, she had already emailed a template, a polite but firm message setting boundaries. I read it twice, then typed my own. Subject: housing boundaries for Birch Street. I love all of you, and my decision is firm. The upstairs unit will be rented to qualified tenants under a signed lease. I will continue to live downstairs. Do not attempt to move into either unit, leave belongings, or arrange contractors. Entry without my written permission is not allowed. I'm willing to help in other ways. Job search, support, budget planning, research into rentals in your range. I am not transferring possession of my property. Nara. I hit send to Mom, Dad, Damon, and Kara. 10 seconds later, my phone vibrated with the familiar "Aye" typing bubble in our family thread. Then it vanished. Then it reappeared. Then nothing. The silence felt like a held breath. Work was a blessing. I buried myself in resource plans and slide decks. No one in the office needed to know my parents had tried to annex my living room. When Dina swung by my desk at lunch, she tucked a little bag of candied ginger next to my keyboard, like a talisman. "How's your stomach?" she asked. "Keeps rolling," I admitted. "Ginger helps," she said. "Also, facts help more." Facts. I opened my budget spreadsheet on my second monitor and duplicated the tab. Scenario: family occupation, I typed. I zeroed out rent. I added the cost of a studio near my office, first and last month's rent, mover, storage, utilities, double insurance. I stared at the bottom right cell as the number shot up. I whispered the total. Dina hissed. "That is not a favor. That is a sinkhole." I didn't need her to say it. Seeing the number worked like aspirin for my guilt. By late afternoon, 6 applications had come in. 2 were obvious no's, 1 with inconsistent income, 1 with a pet list longer than the lease, 3 were maybes, and 1 glowed Amira, a pediatric resident on the night shift, and Theo, a respiratory therapist. Joint income solid, references clean. Their note was simple. We value quiet neighbors, ask for clear communication, and we water plants if you travel. That last line made me smile. Plants don't lie. I scheduled their showing for the next day. I didn't tell my family. I didn't owe them a play-by-play of my life. At 6:40 p.m., my dad texted coffee tomorrow. 8 a.m., Maggie's. No question mark. Old habits tugged at me, the urge to show up and explain. I typed, can't. Meetings. Then, because the voice in my head still wore pigtails and feared that tone, I added happy to put any concerns in writing. He didn't reply. That night, the stairwell creaked with the same old complaint as I taped Lara's simple notice at eye-level private property. No entry without owner permission. The paper shook a little in my hands and then lay flat against the wall like a small, thin shield. I double-checked the new locks. I set my phone on the nightstand. Sleep took its time. Morning sunlight cut across the kitchen tile, butter yellow and ordinary. I made coffee strong enough to count as an opinion. As I drank, a new email popped up from a name I recognized, Priya, the tenant who was moving out. "Hey Nara, I wanted to give you a heads up. A woman named Yvonne called me last night, said she's your mom, asked for a copy of my key for the contractor walkthrough. I didn't give her anything, obviously, but it felt off. Thought you should know. I'll drop keys at the time we agreed." My mouth went dry. I reread the message to make sure my eyes weren't lying. Not a misunderstanding. Not an exaggeration. A move. A deliberate one. I forwarded Priya's email to Lara with a single line. "This happened." Lara wrote back fast, good on Priya. "Save this. If your mom contacts your tenants again, we pursue a cease and desist." I texted Priya a thank you and a gift card for the cafe downstairs from her old place. Part courtesy, part gratitude, part message to myself. Keep people who respect boundaries close. On my way to meet Amira and Theo, I saw the cafe stranger again, the one who'd joked about peace. He caught my glance and lifted his cup in greeting. Up close, his hoodie said Langdon Community Health in flaking letters. He had paint on his knuckles and a face that had learned patience. "Good luck with the war," he said. I laughed because it felt less like a joke today. "Thanks. I'm arming myself with leases." He tilted his head. "Smartest weapon I know. I'm Eli, by the way." "Nara. Neighbor," he added, hooking his thumb toward a small brick building across the alley. "I run a rec program in the church basement when funding shows up and fix stuff the rest of the time." It was nothing, just new information. But my chest loosened a little. I wasn't alone on this block. I had more than walls. I had eyes nearby. Amira and Theo were waiting at the gate right on time, smiles tired but real. They didn't flinch at the old stairwell or the slightly stubborn back door. Theo tapped the radiator like he spoke fluent steam. Amira noticed the baseboards and said, "Somebody cared about this place. Somebody." Did I said hand on the banister I'd sanded and stained until my arms shook. We walked the rooms. We talked noise trash bins, winter parking. I didn't sell. I didn't have to. At the end, Theo said simply, "If you'll have us, we'd like to apply." "You already did," I said, and felt myself smile for real. "I'll send the lease this afternoon." When they left, they waved across the alley at Eli, like they knew him too. He waved back. Something in that small triangle of human politeness steadied me more than coffee. I had just reached for my keys when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Answering was a mistake. "Is this Nara?" The voice was crisp, controlled. "Yes. This is Aunt Jo, my mother's older sister. A woman with a spine. A woman who made her own money running a catering company out of a rented kitchen, and who frankly terrified me as a child." "I stayed quiet too long," she said. "And I'm not cozy with your mother right now, so I can be honest." My stomach hovered somewhere near my throat. "Okay. They've been planning this for weeks," Jo said. "Kara found a handyman willing to start demo as soon as we get the keys. Your father told people at church you're donating the space for a season. Your mother's been calling relatives to marshal pity. I told them I thought it was theft with extra steps. They called me unchristian. You didn't hear that from me." Silence opened wide as a door. "I appreciate you telling me," I said, voice smaller than I wanted. Jo snorted. "Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're fences that keep the goats out of your tomatoes." A breath. Softer. "I'm proud of you. And if anyone shows up with a sledgehammer, you call me too. I know people." I ended the call with a mix of gratitude and nausea. The plan wasn't just in their heads. It had legs. It was walking around town. I emailed Lara again. Update. Aunt confirms they've lined up a handyman and publicly announced I'm giving them the unit. Also, Mom tried to get keys from Priya. Lara replied with 2 sentences that laid track under my feet. "Good. We'll get ahead of it. I'll draft a formal notice to your family, reminding them of trespass law and the consequences of unauthorized entry or damage." By noon, the lease with Amira and Theo sat in their inboxes with clear clauses. No occupants not named in the lease. No alterations without written permission. Rent due, first of the month, 3-day grace period security deposit equal to 1-month move-in inspection with photos. Legal scaffolding. Dry words that hold weight. While waiting for their signatures, I drove to a big box store and bought a simple video doorbell for the common entry motion alerts set to on. It wasn't paranoia. It was a camera with a job. On the way home, Dad called again. I let it ring. A text followed. "You've been childish long enough. We're coming Saturday to walk the space." I typed carefully, "Do not come. The upstairs is leased. The downstairs is occupied. I will not allow entry." Then I put my phone face down and breathed until my shoulders loosened. Back at the house, Eli was on a ladder replacing a bulb over the alley. "New tenants?" he asked. "Hope so," I said. "If they sign." He nodded at the stairwell camera I was holding. "Good idea. The minute people know something is unmanned, they test it." "Has that been your experience?" I asked. "Kids, adults, institutions," he said. "I coach all 3. He grinned at my expression. "You'll be fine." That night, Kara posted a vague bullet on her social accounts. Some people show their true colors when it costs them nothing to be kind. The comments piled up. Heart emojis, prayers, thinly veiled barbs. I resisted the surge in my thumbs. I didn't respond. I didn't screenshot. Lara's voice in my ear. "Paper Nara. Not public." Instead, I opened my budget again and started a clean doc titled, "Ways I Can Help That Don't Break Me." 3 columns. Time, money, energy. Under time, I wrote weekly resume review with Damon. One evening babysitting so Kara can pick up a shift. Under money loan for deposit with repayment plan. Gift cards for groceries for 1 month. Under energy research, realistic rentals. Compile childcare swaps in the neighborhood. It looked small compared to what they demanded. It looked sane compared to what they demanded. Both could be true. At 10:13 p.m., my phone pinged. Documents signed. First month plus deposit received. I exhaled. Amira and Theo were official. I texted Dina a string of happy nonsense. She sent back 5 confetti cannons, and 1 "you did that." I slept like backups had finally run. Friday dawned with a different air. Not lighter, but steadier. You've made decisions, the morning seemed to say. Now you follow through. Lara's formal letter arrived crisp and unavoidable. I forwarded it to my parents and Damon and Kara. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It said in simple sentences that any attempt to enter the property without permission would be trespass. Any attempt to leave property would be considered an unauthorized occupancy. Any attempt to damage walls, fixtures, or locks would be reported. It ended with a line I reread twice. Decisions made about your property are yours to make. At 8:00, my dad called. I let it go. A text arrived, a photo of the letter with ridiculous typed above it. At 9:15, a phone number I didn't recognize rang through. I answered on reflex. Hi, I'm Mateo Ruiz from Harborview Financial. A mutual connection gave me your name, Dina, and said you might want to run numbers on scenarios for a property. I shot Dina a feral grin through the ether. I do want that. Mateo spoke like a spreadsheet with a soul. We went line by line. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy risk, rent history. Then he layered in the family occupation fantasy and we watched the slope of my chart go red. Over 3 years, he said gently, you'd be looking at a cash flow loss that would set your other goals back by 5 to 7 years. That's if everything went smoothly, which given your description seems unlikely. I didn't need convincing, but the numbers had a way of vacuuming doubt out of corners where language couldn't reach. Thank you, I said. I needed that in black and white. Happy to write it up if you want something to share, he said. Sometimes an external report helps quiet the noise. Please, I said. When I hung up, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. It wasn't that the pressure had disappeared. It was that my posture had changed. Around noon, Aunt Jo texted again. Your mother is telling people you'll see the light Saturday. Wear steel shoes. I laughed despite myself and sent a single shoe emoji back. At 2, Amira texted, we can move in Sunday morning. We'll keep it quiet. Also, we have a drill and know how to use a stud finder. I grinned at that last part. Neighbors with tools ranked high on my list of blessings. At 5, Dina met me with labels and painter's tape so I could mark the small things upstairs that needed attention before Amira and Theo arrived. A loose hinge, a wobbly towel bar, a closet light that flickered. We worked in companionable silence until the sun slipped. As we were leaving the stairwell, motion alert pinged. My phone showed grainy movement outside the front door. 2 figures in the porch light. One tall, one with a familiar silhouette that made my shoulders tense. Don't open it, Dina said quietly. I'm not, I said, voice even. We watched from the landing through the old glass pane. My father rattled the handle like it owed him something. Kara stood beside him, in a white puffer, clutching a manila folder like a warrant. Dad knocked 3 sharp raps. Nara, he called, not loud, but in the tone people use when they expect compliance. Open the door. I didn't move. He knocked again. We're here to see the place. Contractor needs measurements. Dina squeezed my elbow. Kitchen, she mouthed, pointing. We slipped down the stairs to the back, leaving the front hall dark and empty. The knocking stopped after a minute. Then the sound of steps retreating. Then the faint scrape of paper sliding under the door. When they were gone, I retrieved the envelope from the front hall. Inside lay a printed family housing agreement with tidy bullet points. I agree to vacate my unit within 2 weeks. I agree to split renovation costs. I agree to unspecified contributions from Damon and Kara as their circumstances improve. No dates, no amounts, no signatures but theirs. At the bottom, a sticky note in my mother's handwriting. Be good. Don't be difficult. I put the packet back in the envelope, took a photo for Lara, and filed it under evidence. Dina exhaled. If you could bottle that audacity, you could fuel the city. Maybe they're out, I said. Maybe that was their last move. Dina looked at me like I'd grown up with her, which I had. Sweetheart, there is never a last move with people who think your boundaries are negotiable. She was right. Saturday arrived like a stage cue. I woke before my alarm pulled on jeans, tied my hair back, and made the downstairs look like what it was someone's home. Coffee mug by the sink, blanket on the couch, music low. I set Lara's letter on the console table and placed my phone on Do Not Disturb, except for 3 people, Lara, Dina, and 911. At 9:07, the doorbell chimed. Motion alert flashed. I checked the feed, Mom and Dad on the porch. Damon a step behind them, shoulders hunched. Kara in oversized sunglasses, jaw clenched. I didn't open the door. I spoke through it, voice calm. I'm not letting anyone in today. The upstairs is leased, the downstairs is occupied. My mother's voice floated through wood and glass sweetened to brittle. We just want to talk. We can talk by email, I said. You can't hide behind paper, Dad snapped. I'm standing in my living room, I said. That's the opposite of hiding. Kara stepped closer to the glass. We already gave notice, she said. You knew that. I didn't know you gave notice without a signed agreement with me, I said. That was unwise. She flinched at unwise like it was a different kind of insult. We have twins, she said, as if that erased deeds and laws and math. Do you want them to be homeless? You won't be, I said. There are rentals in your range. I sent options. I'll help with the deposit and the application fee. I'll help Damon with interviews. I'll watch the kids Tuesdays so you can pick up a shift. Those offers are real. Moving into my property is not. Dad's fist landed on the frame, once a dull thud, more theater than threat. Open the door, Nara. No. Silence. Then my mother tried one more key, the oldest one. You'll regret this when we're gone, she said, tears ready behind the words. Family is all you have. I looked around my living room. At the plant on the window ledge, stretching toward the light. At the shelf I'd leveled 3 times. At the scuffed floorboards that showed where a couch had once lived before I found a better one. At the notice on the wall that said what it said. At my own breath going in and out. I have myself, I said. I'm learning that's enough. Footsteps retreated on the porch. The camera caught a last glance from Damon, brief, unsure, almost apologetic. Then they were gone. I locked the deadbolt out of habit, not fear. Dina texted a minute later, want me to bring bagels? Feels like a bagel day. Bring the everything kind, I wrote. An extra cream cheese. We're feeding victory. She arrived with a paper bag and a grin. How'd it go? They tested the door, I said. The door held. We ate on the floor like college students, backs against the couch relief, tasting like sesame seeds. For a few bright minutes, it felt finished. Then the motion alert pinged again. Different time, different angle. The camera caught a white van backing into the curb. A logo on the side. Bryce Handyman Services. 2 guys in paint-splattered pants hopped out and hoisted a stack of drywall like a flag. Kara was with them, pointing at the stairs, as if she were the foreman. Damon trailed behind, hands in pockets, eyes on his shoes. Dina set her bagel down like it was fragile. Call Lara, she said. Now. I called. Lara picked up on the first ring. Front porch, I said. Contractors. Kara with them. Stay inside, Lara said. I'm calling the non-emergency line. Do not engage. Film through the window. Timestamp everything. I did as I was told. The handyman tried the knob, then frowned at the camera. Kara rapped on the door, and then on the window, like she could knock me out of existence. Through the thin glass, I spoke one sentence, in a voice I barely recognized, flat and unwavering. Any attempt to enter is trespass. The police have been called. Kara's face morphed fast shock, then fury, then a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We're family, she said, lips forming the words like an incantation that had always worked. Open the door. No, I said. The handyman shrugged, put the drywall back in the van, and phoned someone. Within minutes, a patrol car eased to the curb. No siren, just presence. 2 officers stepped out, one older one, new enough to still look surprised by human drama. Lara arrived half a breath later in a dark blazer and sneakers. She handled it without heat. Names, ownership, lease upstairs signed and filed, notice posted, warning issued. The older officer frowned at Kara like he was tired. "Ma'am, you can't enter a residence you don't live in without permission." Kara started to cry. Real or not, I couldn't tell anymore. Damon looked at the sidewalk. "Come on," he muttered to her or himself, I couldn't tell that either. They left with their van and their mortification. The block exhaled. I sank to the floor, every muscle letting go at once. Dina pressed a cold bottle of water into my hand. Lara crouched to my eye level. "You did everything right," she said. "No escalation, no debate, just a boundary and a law." "I hate that it came to this," I said the truth like a bruise. "That's because you're decent," Lara said. "Decent people hate using fences until the goats start eating the tomatoes." Aunt Joe's line delivered in a new mouth made me laugh and cry at the same time. After they left, I walked the downstairs, slowly making sure it was all still mine. I checked the back door, the side window that sticks in humidity, the bedroom latch that clicks soft. I turned off the stairwell light and stood for a second in the dim listening. The building made its old familiar noises, pipes settling, street tires whispering past. A sparrow down the block, outraged about something small. Ordinary sound, precious. Sunday morning, Amira and Theo arrived with 2 friends, a bookshelf, and enough plants to oxygenate a wing of a hospital. They carried their lives up the stairs in the efficient long steps of people who have moved before. Eli appeared with a dolly and muffins. I handed over 4 labeled keys and a packet with utility info, a trash schedule, and a welcome note that was simple and true. "I'm glad you're here." We did the move-in inspection together, phone cameras clicking. The upstairs felt instantly less empty, less at risk. Occupied is a legal word. It's also a feeling. Someone lives here is a kind of spell. After the last box went in, Theo handed me a jar of green olives. "We saw you liked them," he said, nodding at my kitchen ledge where I'd once left a jar to brine. "Consider it a neighbor tax." I laughed, paid gladly. Back downstairs, my phone pinged with an email from Mateo, a neat PDF, charts clean, language simple. Scenario analysis. Proposed family occupancy would result in an aggregate negative cash flow of $118,000, $160,000 over 36 to 60 months, excluding renovation risk or legal costs. Recommendation: do not proceed. Numbers again, standing shoulder to shoulder with my gut. Another ping. Aunt Joe. Heard the handyman story. Good. Keep copies of everything. And Nara. Don't let them reframe today as your cruelty. It was their choice to try your lock. I put the phone down and let the quiet reach me. Not the tense quiet of waiting for the next knock. The warm quiet of a house doing its job. 4 walls and a roof and a spine. The war wasn't over. People like my parents and Kara don't lay down grievances so easily. They would regroup. They would craft a new version of events where I was the villain with a law degree and a cold heart. They'd recruit an audience. They'd rehearse their lines. But the stage had shifted. The upstairs was leased. The downstairs was mine. The paper trail was a bridge I could walk without looking down. And every time someone I loved tried to turn my boundary into a character flaw, I had a sentence ready: "I can love you and still say no." That afternoon, I brewed tea and sat at my table with a pen. I wrote a list titled, "What Comes Next?" It had 6 items. Send Mateo's report to my parents and Damon with a short note. This is why I said no. I'm still willing to help in these other ways. Compile rentals again. Include contact info, income requirements, and a 1-page how to apply fast sheet for Damon. Set up weekly check-ins with Damon for job applications. 30 minutes Tuesday evenings. Offer Tuesday babysitting for the twins. Specific time, specific end. Schedule coffee with Aunt Joe to say thank you. Buy donuts for Lara's office because people who keep you standing deserve sugar. I didn't expect miracles. I expected backlash. But I could be the one in the room who stayed concrete. Offers with times and numbers and end dates. No fog. Before sunset, I walked out to the stoop with a broom and swept the day off the steps. Grit a leaf, the torn corner of an envelope I didn't want to think about. Eli waved from across the alley. Amira's laughter floated down through open windows, light and tired and good. My phone buzzed with a text from Damon. Can we talk, just me? I looked at the word me for a long second. Just me, not we. My brother, not my parents, not Kara's chorus. I typed, tomorrow, 6 p.m., cafe on Birch. I'll be there. I put my phone in my pocket and kept sweeping. The porch boards shone where the broom passed. The light went soft and then softer. I had drawn a line in daylight, and it held. The cafe on Birch is small enough that you hear the bell twice once, when the door opens again when it closes, and the hinge remembers its job. Damon slipped in under the bell, with his hands deep in his jacket pockets, like he was afraid they'd make trouble if he let them out. He saw me lifted a palm and came over. No entourage, no Kara. That was a start. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. "Order first," I said. "No one makes good decisions hungry." He almost smiled. We got 2 black coffees and a plate of cinnamon toast because the new barista was a poet about butter. We took the table by the window. Outside, the sidewalk was wet from a fast, polite rain. Cars hissed by. Damon wrapped his hands around his cup. "I'm sorry," he said. "No warm-up. For the door, for the handyman, for the letter under your mat. All of it." I kept my face open. "Thank you for saying it." He swallowed. "I won't make excuses, but I need you to know. I didn't plan it, not the way they did. They I asked, not mean, precise. Dad and Kara," he said, looking at the table. "Mom went along because she hates conflict. But Kara, she sees angles I never see. And Dad thinks family means he gets to direct traffic. I let him talk. Sometimes people open up if they don't have to defend every sentence." He stared at the window like it held subtitles. "They told me you'd say yes," he said. "Said you always do eventually. Dad said he'd already told Pastor Green we'd have a place. Kara called a contractor before I even asked you. She made mood boards, the mood boards, and told the twins we were moving near a park." He laughed without humor. "They practiced how to look excited without running in your hall. Why not ask me like a person instead of all that I asked?" He winced. "Because Dad said it had to be decided for you. Like when we were kids and he decided I'd get your bike because I'd use it more, and you'd grow out of it soon. He thinks if he presents a plan as done, people don't argue." The old sting flickered. The bike had been blue with a silver bell. I remembered the way Dad had patted my shoulder when he handed it over. Family shares. I'd cried quietly into a pillow so no one would call me selfish. Damon took a breath. "Kara made it worse," he said. "She told me if we waited for your process, we'd end up on the wait list for a moldy 2-bedroom across town. She said you like control more than people. She said we needed to move fast so you didn't overthink." His mouth twisted. "I keep letting people think for me." "You came alone," I said. "That's thinking." He shook his head. "It's late, but I'm here." The barista delivered the toast. The air went sweet with cinnamon. For a minute, we ate like normal siblings. Then Damon reached into his pocket and slid a crumpled paper across the table, the original family agreement. This copy annotated in Kara's tidy script. Arrows, timelines. A line that read, "Change utilities over day before, move to establish service in our name." Another, "Have mail forwarded to Birch ASAP." Photos of kids in windows. Residency optics. My chest went tight. Residency optics, I read out loud. He winced again. "It was about making it look settled right away," he said. "Boxes inside. Kids visible. Mail delivered. If you tried to change your mind, they could say we already lived there. You realize none of that would make a lease appear," I said. "It only makes a mess." "I do now," he said. At the time, I let myself believe we were making it efficient. "It was manipulation. I'm sorry." I nodded once. He was telling the truth. I could feel it. He rubbed his eyebrow like it itched. "There's more," he said. "Dad told me he wanted to fix what Grandpa got wrong." "What does that mean?" "You know how Grandpa let Uncle Len live in his house without rent for 5 years while he got back on his feet?" he said. "It wrecked Grandpa's savings and Grandma's nerves. Dad swore he'd never let family be homeless again, and this is the part he decided the way to do that was to deputize you. Said, your sister's the responsible one. She can absorb this. Like you're a retirement plan. Responsible one. The label I'd worn until it left a groove." I could see Dad saying it. I could hear the cadence. Damon looked like he might be sick. "I believed him," he said, "because it meant I didn't have to make a plan that hurt. Saying no to Kara hurts. Saying no to Dad hurts. Asking for a real lease and paying it hurts. So I let myself believe that if I acted fast, you'd give in and call it generosity later. That way, I could be the good guy who wanted to help instead of the guy who needed to grow up." Silence stretched. The cafe radio hummed something from the 90s. A kid spilled milk at the counter, and his mom muttered shoot while they wiped it up with two thin napkins. What do you want now? I asked. Simple question, big answer. Damon didn't dodge it. A plan that isn't just taking your stuff, he said. I read the folder you gave us. The Riverdale complex has a 3-bedroom opening next month, and the manager said our application would be stronger if I can show a budget and a letter from my current job about hours. I need help with both. That I can do, I said. I pulled a small notebook from my bag. Let's outline steps, timeline to move. What Kara can do that actually brings in money. What you can do that isn't just hoping the warehouse loves you. He nodded grateful and a little ashamed. Okay. We made a list. Tuesday night work sessions, a script for calling the Riverdale manager, notes for his supervisor asking for a written hours guarantee. I offered the deposit loan again with a repayment plan in writing. He didn't flinch this time. Put it in a doc, he said. I'll sign it. When we stood our coffee cold, Damon hugged me quick and awkward. I messed up, he said into my hair. I know saying sorry doesn't fix what they did on your porch, but I want to be different. Be different then, I said. Not for me, for you. He nodded. On his way out, he turned back. One more thing. If Kara shows up at your door again, call me. I can't control her, but I don't want you standing there alone. I won't be, I said, but thanks. He left. The bell did its double duty. I sat back down and wrote everything we'd said while it was fresh. Paper, not public. That evening, I came home to 2 envelopes in my mailbox and a stack of flyers for a church rummage sale. The first envelope was from the gas company, welcoming new resident Kara Mercer to service at my address effective next Tuesday. The second was from the electric company, confirming a transfer of service for the upstairs unit to family of Damon and Kara. Both were dated yesterday. Both used my address. My head went hot, then cold. I took photos. I forwarded them to Laura. Then I called the numbers on the letters. The gas company rep put me on hold long enough to knit a scarf came back and said cheerfully, all set. We've canceled that transfer. We'll note that only the deeded owner can authorize changes. The electric company rep was less cheerful and asked for a scanned copy of my deed. I sent it. She apologized. We get this sometimes with ex-partners, she said, less often with family. When I hung up, I stared at the letters like they were creatures. If I hadn't gotten home first, if the mail had gotten soaked in the rain and I'd tossed it service, might have switched. And I'd be the one explaining to Amira and Theo why their lights flickered Sunday morning for no reason. Residency Optics had teeth. I printed the letters and slid them into the evidence folder. Then I texted Damon a photo with a single line, "Please make sure this stops." His reply was immediate. "I will. That wasn't me." "I'll handle it." I believed him. Believing him didn't mean I stood without armor. Aunt Jo called, just as I sat down with a plate of leftover pasta. "Take a walk," she said. "If I tell you this over the phone, the walls will hear and sulk." I laughed. "I'm free in 20. She lives 6 blocks away in a shotgun house with a screened porch that smells like basil and lemon oil. When I arrived, she had a pitcher of iced tea and a bowl of almonds on the table because she believes snack bowls keep hard talk civilized. I kept my mouth shut for decades, she said, handing me a glass. No more. She told me a story I only knew in outline. How my grandfather let his brother stay rent-free after a failed business. How the brother drank. How the drinking turned the house into a ghost ship of slammed doors and whispered fights. How my grandmother's hair went white in a single winter. How the help ended only when a cousin moved him out in the night. My father had watched all of that. He turned it into a creed. Peter thinks preventing homelessness is the same as taking people's lives into your hands, Joe said. He doesn't see that sometimes the best way to keep someone upright is to make them stand on their feet, not your shoulders. Why me, I asked. Why not him? Why not both of us? Because you're competent, she said. He mistakes competence for an endless well. She leaned back, eyes sharp. And he thinks men's mistakes are storms that pass. Women's boundaries in his mind are weather that ruins a picnic. I winced. It was too accurate to argue. She topped off my tea. I called him a bully to his face, she said. He said I was mischaracterizing a family tradition. I said the tradition was using the sensible daughter as a fuse. I laughed, then covered my face. It wasn't funny. It was the relief of being seen. Listen, Joe said. 2 more things. First, be careful about your title. My title, Your house title, she said. People do stupid paper things when they feel righteous. File a check with the recorder's office. Make sure nobody recorded some nonsense memorandum of family agreement against your property. I've seen it. Takes a minute to clean up. Makes a sale or a refi a nightmare. My stomach dipped. I'll ask Laura. Second, she said. Pastor Green is not your judge, but he has ears. He hears one side loud. If you have the energy, tell him yours. Not to get permission, to cut off the gossip hose. I nodded. I'll think about it. She walked me to the gate and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, she said. Not because you fought them, because you didn't fight yourself. On my way home, my phone vibrated with a new email from Laura. Good call from Joe. I'm pulling the index now. If there's any filing, we'll file an affidavit of wrongful recording and a notice of non-consent. Also, we can place a no trespass directive with community policing, so future calls don't require full explanation. I exhaled. One step ahead of chaos. It felt new. Tuesday came, and with it, our first work night. Damon arrived on time, hair damp, from a too-fast shower laptop under his arm. He looked around my living room like it was expensive. It isn't. It's clean and chosen. This is a nice couch, he said, and then cursed himself with his eyes. It's a couch, I said lightly. Sit. We started with the budget. He hated the first 10 minutes, which is how you know you're budgeting. We opened his checking statements and followed the money like detectives. Rent, groceries, gas, 3 streaming services app. Micro purchases that added to a number that made him blink. We found a gym membership he'd forgotten while paying to use the work gym instead. We set goals. We chose what to cancel and what to keep. We set a number he could live with and a number that would stretch him a little. Not a fantasy, a plan. Then we drafted a tight email to the Riverdale manager, attached income verification credit explanation with context, and a letter from current supervisor. We can tour Thursday between 3 to 5 p.m. We practiced a call script so he wouldn't ramble when nerves hit. We wrote bullet points for a talk with his supervisor that didn't sound like begging. We printed the deposit loan agreement and he signed with a steady hand. At the end, I fed him leftover soup and watched his face soften as food and possibility did their work. He rinsed his bowl without being asked. He stood at the door a long beat. I forgot how much you do alone, he said, not pitying, not admiring, just noticing. I'm not alone, Ed. I've got people who know how to be people. Dina, Lara. My tenants are kind. There's a neighbor who changes light bulbs and doesn't preach. He grinned. That last part is rare. Gold, I said. After he left, I checked my email and found 2 new things. One, a reply from Pastor Green's assistant, polite and earnest. The pastor would be happy to hear your perspective. Office hours, Wednesday at 10, if convenient. 2, a short note from Lara Recorder's office, shows a memorandum of family housing, filed 2 days ago, signed by your father and Kara, referencing your address. Worthless legally, but it clouds title. I'm filing to expunge first thing in the morning. Hold on to your hat. My jaw clenched. I hadn't even known the hat was in play. I called Lara. She picked up on the first ring. They recorded it, I said. They tried to, she corrected. The clerk stamped it because clerks don't analyze. That's a judge's job, but we'll clear it. It's a lever for them, not a lock. Why would they do that? Because they think the story is reality, she said, and because they've found people to reward them for saying it out loud. This filing is a performance. We answer with law. I'll send you a draft. After we hung up, I stared at the wall where I'd hung a small painting of the lake at dusk. The water in the picture looked like it was breathing. I breathed with it. The camera pinged. Motion on the upstairs landing. Amira had hung a small brass bell on their door, the soft kind that chimes when you open it. The sound drifted down like a blessing. Someone lives here. I said it in my head again. Then I went to bed on time for once. Wednesday at 10, I sat in a chair that had counseled 100 crises and listened to Pastor Green say all the things people say when they believe they're neutral. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. We only want to support families. Perhaps a compromise. I laid it out simply. No raised voice, no footnotes, the mortgage, the lease, the attempted utility transfer, the handyman on my stairs, the police, the recording at the county, the twins, the offers I'd made that didn't break me. I put Mateo's 2-page report on his desk and slid Lara's letter next to it. He cleared his throat. Well? He leaned back. That has details. Details matter, I said. They're where fairness lives. He nodded slowly. You're not the villain they described. I'm not the hero either, I said. I'm a woman protecting her house. He looked embarrassed. I let a story carry me, he said. I will update the narrative. Privately, I won't make a show of it. That's all I ask. On my way out, one of the church volunteers loitering with a mop caught my sleeve. Good for you, she murmured. My niece went through something like that. If you need a metal trash can to burn letters in, I have a spare. I laughed and felt my shoulders drop an inch. Back at Birch Street, Lara emailed filed. They'll get notice. We'll have a hearing to clear the record if they push. Meanwhile, I've placed a directive at the precinct attached to your address. Any call from you, or attempted entry or harassment gets flagged with context. Paper and people, the only mix that seemed to keep me steady. Around noon, Amira texted. Someone left a note on our door that said family property. Vacate. We removed it. Was on pink stationery with perfume. Not kidding. Thought you should know. She sent a photo, curly handwriting. The words slanted hard like they were in a hurry. Rage is hot and stupid. I let mine cool until it could walk and speak. Then I wrote back, Thank you. I'm sorry you had to see that. There's a directive on file if anyone shows up. If you're comfortable, keep the note in an envelope. I'll take it for our records. I added a smile. Your brass bell has fans, by the way. It sounds like a good kind of shop. Theo replied with a photo of the bell and a thumbs up. Eli texted 5 minutes later. Saw a woman in a white puffer lingering on the landing. I tapped the window. She left. I'll keep my eyes open. Neighborhood is a word. It's also a verb. That afternoon, Damon called from the Riverdale parking lot. We got the place, he said, wonder and relief both. Manager said the paperwork was the cleanest she'd seen this week. We move in the first. Good, I said. Put the move date on a calendar and guard it like a newborn. Then he whispered Kara's mad. She thought getting the place meant we gave up on Birch. You didn't give up, I said. You grew up. He laughed wetly. I'm telling her we're not talking about your house again. If she keeps pushing, I'll ask her to leave the call. He paused. I should have done that sooner. Sooner wasn't available, I said, but now is. That night, the twins came over. Damon dropped them with their backpacks and a bag of grapes and a whispered thank you that slid under my skin and sat there warm. We drew on scrap paper with my good pens. We made a fort with chairs and a blanket. We watched a show about tiny animals that build houses. Sky asked if my house could be pink. I said maybe the door one day. Jamie said pink doors mean the house inside is kind. I'll write that down, I said. When Damon came to pick them up, he stood in the doorway and looked around the fort we'd built. His face did that softening thing again. I get it, he said. It's not space, it's care. Care is expensive, I said, not just money. He nodded. I'll protect ours better. The next morning, a thick envelope arrived from the recorder's office copy of the Memorandum of Family Housing with its cheap clip art border and the words for recording stamped in sad red. Below my father's signature and Kara's name written with the curlicue confidence of someone who likes forms because they look official. The memo claimed mutual agreement between owner and family to share occupancy for no less than 3 years. No owner signature. No notary, just assertions printed on a home office inkjet. Lara's copy of our affidavit sat on top of it like an adult next to a pretend sword. We had date statutes and a notary seal that shone like it ate for breakfast. A sticky note from Lara perched on the edge. Keep this for your future memoir. Title idea, my boundary your saw. I laughed and felt the last of the panic slide out of me. They could file paper. I could file paper that eats paper. By afternoon, my father texted a single sentence. You've embarrassed us. I typed and deleted 3 versions of a response. Then I wrote, I enforce the law. Your choices embarrassed you. I stared at it. Too sharp. No. True. I hit send. He didn't write back. Kara posted another glittering, vague bomb on her page. I didn't look. Dina did so. I wouldn't. Her text. They're playing to a crowd. Keep your stage small. I put the phone face down and went to water the plant in the kitchen window. That evening, I answered a knock. I expected Eli with a tool bag. Your upstairs sink drips if you don't nudge the handle, he said. Want me to take a look? Also, I brought chocolate because adulting deserves it. You are a better neighbor than I deserve, I said, letting him in. As he worked, we talked. Not about my family. About the block. About his rec program and the kid who can do a perfect layup, but refuses to tie his shoes because he hates the bow. About Amira's habit of leaving the stairlight on for him when he works late. About the church kitchen's oven that runs hot and ruins pies. His stories braided into the walls and made the place feel less like a fort I was defending and more like a home in a web of other homes. When he was done, he wiped his hands and looked at me. You've had a week, he said. I've had a year packed into a week, I said. You handled it, he said. Not a question, a fact. I had help. That's handling it, he said. Getting help is a skill. After he left, I made a small dinner and ate it without scrolling. The house was quiet in the way good houses are aware, not empty. I opened my notebook and wrote 3 lines. They thought a story could become a deed. I answered the story with paper and people. It worked. Then I wrote 1 more line for me. You are allowed to be proud. Friday night, a van idled at the curb again. The camera caught 2 boxes placed on my porch, neat and accusing like they had rights. The return address was Kara's. The labels said winter and books. The message was obvious. We live here now. I did what Lara told me to do. I didn't open them. I took photos. I called the non-emergency line and gave my address. The officer who came was the same older one as before. He looked at the boxes and shook his head. Tried this when my daughter broke up with a boyfriend who liked my shed, he said. Boxes make claims some folks think outrank law. They don't. He rang Kara's number from the slip taped to the side. Contractors always leave their numbers and told her to retrieve them by morning, or he'd mark the items abandoned and call city pickup. He wrote a report number on my copy of the paper and underlined it. Documentation keeps memory honest, he said. At 6 a.m., the boxes were gone. The porch was empty, except for a leaf and the small dirt smile left by rubber soles. I swept it away. At noon, Damon texted, that was Kara. I told her to stop. She said you won, and I said, it's not a game. We're moving to Riverdale on the 1st. I'm booking the truck. Then, after a breath, thank you for the Tuesday shift. The twins love you. I owe you 3 soups and a tire rotation. I'll take all 4, I wrote. That night, the family thread pinged for the first time in days. Mom family dinner next Sunday. Casual. No pressure. Dad, nothing. Kara seen no reply. Damon. We'll come. We can bring salad. Me, I'll come. I'll bring dessert. Dina texted immediately, after I have a cheesecake pan and an opinion on berries. I smiled. A small, unexciting, mature smile. The kind you wear when your life isn't a movie, but it's yours. Sunday morning, I watched Amira water her plants on the upstairs landing. The brass bell chimed. Eli waved at a kid wobbling past on a new bike. I tightened a loose screw on the porch rail and thought about the bike I lost and the house I refused to lose. I thought about the word share and how it meant different things depending on who owned the shovel. In the afternoon, I drove to the Riverdale complex with Damon to sign the last papers. Kara came in a separate car. She didn't look at me, but she did look at the playground across the lot with the kind of measuring gaze that says we can be okay here. The twins shrieked when they saw the slide. Damon held the keys like they might float away. On the way out, he stopped me by the door. I told her about the recording, he said. Don't worry, I didn't say you told me. She said it was a formality, and I told her the formality was theft. She cried. I didn't fix it. I just drove here. That's new, I said. It hurts, he said. New things do, I said. That doesn't make them wrong. He nodded, then bent to tie Jamie's shoe with calm hands. A month ago, he'd have let the laces trail and said we're late, like lateness erased tripping. When I got home, I found a small white envelope taped to my door with no perfume this time. Inside was a simple card. We'll stop contacting your tenant. We'll handle our own home. Kara. The handwriting was tight like a jaw. It wasn't an apology. It was a ceasefire. Sometimes that's all you get. I put the card in the folder. I made tea. I sat by the window and watched my plant lean into the light the way plants do when they're sure the sun is not a negotiator. This wasn't the end. It was the middle that people can live in. Papers filed, boxes removed. Keys where they belong. Offers that help with edges. A brother inching into adulthood. A father chewing on his pride. A mother learning that tears don't dissolve law. A sister-in-law discovering that some doors no longer open to charm. And me. Not a hero, not a villain. A woman with a deed and a spine and a small stubborn joy that no one could reassign. Next week, there'd be family dinner and silent glances, and the way my dad puts down a fork when he's about to say something loaded. Next week, there'd be the first rent from upstairs hitting my account on time, because Amira's calendar is a better friend than my old guilt. Next week, I'd help Damon fill out a direct deposit form and teach him the satisfaction of a reconciled budget. Next week, I'd take the twins to the library and let them pick books about houses that don't fall when someone knocks. But tonight I would do something small and ordinary and entirely mine. I would bake a cheesecake because Dina insists it cures social weather, and I would sleep in a room that stayed my room. And when the house shifted in its old bones and murmured the way old houses do, I'd hear it as gratitude, not warning. The line I drew held. What came next would ask for more lines. I knew how to draw them now. Straight, visible, signed. Dina arrived an hour before I had to leave one arm around a springform pan like it was a baby, the other balancing a small saucepan of berry compote that smelled like July. Stress cheesecake, she announced, baked low and slow. It persuades difficult people. I'll settle for quieting them, I said, clearing a space on the counter. I'm bringing this civility, nothing else. She set the pan down and eyed me. And boundaries, she said. That's dessert, too. We worked without talking for a few minutes, me slicing strawberries, her warming berries with a whisper of lemon. The house felt steady. Upstairs, Amira's bell made a soft sound as someone went in or out. Theo laughed at something I couldn't hear. In the alley, Eli knocked on the back door with a cake carrier held up like a prize. You'll want this, he said. Keeps the top pretty if you hit a pothole. You're a saint, I said, fitting the lid. I'll bring it back tomorrow. No rush. We're making dumbbells out of paint cans tonight. Is that a youth program? It's the budget is $5 program, he said, grinning. Dina gave him a half wave with her spoon. We're attempting peace negotiations by pastry. Bring a ladle for the guilt, he said. It'll be thick. After he left, Dina leaned on the counter and watched me tuck the cheesecake into the carrier. Ground rules, she said. Say them out loud. I nodded. 1, I don't debate the house. If it comes up, I say, we're not discussing my property, and change topics. 2, I will correct lies once calmly. 3, if anyone insults my tenants or tries to involve the twins, I leave with the cheesecake. Dina bumped my shoulder. And 4, breathe. I have lungs, I said. I'll use them. Good girl. I dressed in something neutral and hard to wrinkle. On my way out, I checked the stairwell camera, flicked the porch light switch off, then on again, superstition masquerading as routine, and drove. Mom's block looked the same right down to Mr. Ellis's birdbath, with a cement squirrel perched like it knows secrets. Her curtains glowed yellow. Inside the house smelled like rosemary and something buttery. I carried the cheesecake in like it was a crown, and set it down on the sideboard next to the good plates that only come out for people Mom wants to impress or control. Sweetheart, Mom said, brisk and breathy, kissing my cheek. Her eyes shone more than they needed to. She cupped my face as if checking for fever. Look at you. I came, I said, like I said I would. Dad appeared in the doorway, chin a notch high. Dessert looks good, he said, like he'd made it. His voice sat on the room like a heavy book. Damon arrived with a bowl of salad, and Sky and Jamie tugging on his jacket, chirping a practiced chorus, Hi! Aunt Nara Cara followed sunglasses on her head mouth, already set in a shape that meant complaints. Hi, she said, not to me. To the room. Aunt Jo came last with a basket of bread wrapped in a striped towel. She met my eyes over the loaves and gave me the smallest nod. I was told casual, she said. So I brought what poor people eat when they pretend they're rich. Bread is rich, I said. Good bread is wealth. We settled. Mom fussed. Dad poured water as if it were wine. The twins whispered about the cloud shapes they saw on the drive. I told them I'd seen a rabbit cloud last Tuesday, and they gasped like I'd found treasure. The adults circled the edges of conversation like no one wanted to be the first to step on a crack. Finally, Mom clapped her hands once. Let's sit, she said. Let's thank God for our blessings and eat before the roast dries out. We took our places. Habit tugged at my legs like gravity. I sat where I always did, across from Dad next to Damon, within easy reach of the twins should they need rescuing from peas. After grace plates circulated, for a few minutes it was safe. Salt, bread, a mild comment about traffic, a story from Damon about a forklift that stopped obeying physics. Then Dad cleared his throat. The fork in my hand knew that sound better than my ears. "We'll keep things simple tonight," he said. "No dramatic speeches. We're family. We've had misunderstandings. We can correct them like adults." I folded my napkin. I let it rest in my lap. "I agree with the first part I said, no speeches." He took that as permission. "Your mother and I have always provided for our children," he began, "and we expect." Aunt Jo cut in voice light but blade-edged. "Peter." He frowned. "Joe, with respect." "With respect," she said, "if you stand on the centerpiece and deliver remarks, I'll clap for you. But if we're talking, let's talk. And let's start with the fact that you and Kara filed a fake memorandum that tried to turn Nara's house into community property." The room jerked like someone had caught a live wire. Mom's smile cracked and slid. Kara reached for her glass and missed. Damon looked down, guilty and grateful at once. Dad's face went red at the edges. "It was not fake," he said, slowly choosing each word like it could explode. "It was a declaration of family intention. It was a clouded title," Joe said, "which Lara has already cleared, thank God, in county procedure." Kara's chair scraped back a half-inch. "We were protecting the kids," she said, chin raised. "We were making sure no one changed their mind at the last minute." "It wasn't your mind to change," I said, voice even. "It's my house." Mom's hand shot toward mine, then stopped midair when she saw my face. "Nara," she cooed, pivoting. "No one wants to fight. We want to heal." "I do too," I said. "And step one of healing is naming what happened." "What happened," Dad said flatly, "is that your brother's family needed help, and you turned them away." "What happened," I said, still calm, "is that you decided to take my property. Tried to make it look like a done deal, lined up a handyman to break walls, called my tenant for keys, attempted to transfer utilities, and filed paper at the recorder's office to create leverage. That isn't help. That is taking." Jamie, who had been focused on peas, looked up with a small frown. "Grandpa said if we put our pictures in the windows early, it would mean it's our house," he said matter-of-factly, like reporting the weather. "Because then people see us and know we live there." Silence dropped hard and stayed. The twins don't lie. They observe, and they repeat. Dad's chair creaked. His jaw moved once, twice. Mom closed her eyes. Kara stirred water that didn't need stirring. Damon touched Jamie's shoulder. "We're not doing that, buddy," he said quietly. "We have our own place now." I decided to leave the shame in the air until it found its level. After a long minute, Dad gripped his fork and said to his plate, "I don't apologize for preventing my grandchildren from being homeless." "Good," I said, "because they weren't. Riverdale approved you. You move on the first." I looked at Kara. "Congrats, by the way. The playground is nice." Her mouth pressed into a line, maybe hiding relief. Mom shifted gears fast, as always. "We're all tired," she said, bright as tinsel. "Let's focus on the solution. Nara, your brother's family will be settled soon. Perhaps in time you'll—" "No," I said softly. "Stop leaving doors cracked. Let them close. It keeps boundary drafts out." Sky, who had been carefully balancing a carrot on her fork, looked up. "What's a boundary draft?" "Cold air that sneaks in when grown-ups won't say what they mean," I said. And Sky nodded, as if that explained winter. Damon cleared his throat. "We're not moving into Birch," he said to our parents. "Not to me." His voice was steady new. "It's not a discussion. We have a lease at Riverdale. I have a deposit loan I will repay. Kara's picking up hours at the school. I'm working a second shift at the retailer until we're ahead. You can support us by watching the kids sometimes and by not inviting us to illegal projects." Kara shot him a look that could set paper on fire. He didn't burn. Dad stared at him like he was speaking a language he'd refused to learn. "You're being dramatic," he said. "We were managing a situation." "It wasn't your situation to manage," Damon said. "It was mine." I had not seen him hold his shoulders like that since we were kids playing tag. And he finally turned around and chased me instead of running. Mom was breathing shallow. Tears came and went in her eyes like waves. "Nara," she said, switching targets, "we miss you. The family misses you. The way you've been cold legal, this isn't you. It is me," I said. The legal part prevents more police visits. The cold part prevents heart attacks. Your grandmother would be ashamed of this distance, Dad said. She kept boys sleeping on her floor for months in the Depression. She never turned family away. Aunt Jo leaned in. She also died with ulcers the size of quarters, she said. And she told me 3 days before she passed that her biggest regret was letting men take her soft heart and sharpen it into a tool for their needs. Mom flinched. Dad frowned. Damon watched Jo as if she were reading a secret map. I took a breath. I brought something, I said, reaching for my bag. Paper, not public. I slid 2 documents onto the table, Mateo's analysis with numbers in clear columns, and Lara's letter condensed to 1 page with bold headers. This is not theater, I said. This is math and law. Over 3 to 5 years, the plan you proposed would cost me up to $160,000, not counting damage or legal fees. I would also, because of zoning and occupancy rules, risk violations and fines. My mortgage would become a question mark. My credit would change. My life would shrink to fix a problem you created by making promises to people at church before you had a yes. Dad didn't touch the papers. Mom stared at the numbers like they were a language she refused. Kara read fast, and then read again, slower expression doing math for once. Damon glanced once as if confirming what he already believed. We didn't ask you to pay for everything, Dad said, after a beat looking tired for the first time. We asked you to be generous. You asked me to stop being a person and become a system, I said. It's not the same. Mom's face crumpled. I wanted my children close, she said, suddenly small. I wanted to hear little feet on our stairs and know we were a family that stayed. You can still want that, I said gently. Want doesn't pave roads. Work does. Work we can share. Work that doesn't involve my deed. Kara set her glass down too carefully. We were scared, she said, not quite looking at me. I was. I don't apologize for trying to secure a home for my kids. I apologize for how. It was the closest she had come to actual contrition since the first day. The apology was dented, but it was an apology. Aunt Jo raised her bread like a toast. Now we're cooking. Dad bristled. Don't make jokes, he snapped. I make bread, Jo said. It's what I make when people think control is love. Damon reached for the bowl of salad side when he realized it was empty, and then pushed his chair back. Let's make this easy, he said. No one talks about Birch Street again. If someone slips, we say, not our house, and move on. If someone posts vague nonsense online, Nara is allowed to post pictures of cakes and ignore it. If anyone needs help, we ask with specifics, and we take no like grown-ups. He looked to me. Does that work for you? It's a start, I said. Here are my specifics. I'll help with resumes Tuesday nights for the next 6 weeks. I'll babysit Tuesdays from 6-9 so Kara can pick up a shift. I'll loan the deposit with a signed repayment plan. I will not co-sign anything. I will not discuss my property. Mom folded her napkin in half, then in half again. 6 weeks, she repeated, as if tasting the boundaries in her mouth. Yes, I said. A schedule tells the brain it can stop howling. Dad stared at the ceiling as if God might weigh in. God polite did not. The twins, who had only caught every third word, turned their forks into rockets and whispered pew pew at the centerpiece. Mom took their forks away and gave them bread, and the crisis leaked out of the room the way air leaks from a balloon left under a sofa slow. A little sad, inevitable. We ate. The roast was good. The salad was reappearing from the kitchen. Damon told a funny story about a customer who returned a set of bowls because they clanged when I stacked them, and even Dad smiled a little in spite of himself. Kara pointed at a painting on the wall and told the story of how she'd found one just like it on the curb in college. And for a few minutes, she had a past that didn't include making plans with other people's houses. Mom asked me about work, and I told her about a grant we were chasing. It felt almost like peace, which is heavy when you don't trust it. Then Mom stood and said, "Too bright dessert," and tried to lift the cheesecake herself. I took it gently from her hands. I sliced with a knife dipped in hot water so the edges stayed clean the way Dina taught me. I drizzled compote like confetti. I passed plates. Kara ate a bite and closed her eyes. Fine, she said. This could end wars. Only the dessert wars, I said. The rest need budgets. Sky asked if the berries were from the backyard. Jamie speculated that berries in winter are made by wizards. Damon reminded him about freezers. Dad announced that berries out of season are indulgent. Aunt Jo said indulgence is how you keep from screaming. Mom said Yvonne makes stew, then looked at me as if I were a person who makes stew too. After dessert, as people began to put dishes in stacks that didn't make sense, Dad caught my elbow lightly and guided me toward the hall. We stood in the quiet near the coat closet, a neutral zone that had seen 1,000 small arguments about scarves. He spoke without looking at me. I told Pastor Green a version that made me sound noble, he said, staring straight ahead. He told me yesterday that I had left out the part where your house isn't mine. He's smart, I said. I am. Reconsidering how I talk, he said, as if it hurt. Don't take that as surrender. I won't confuse growth with surrender, I said. Different verbs. He looked at me, then really looked. You called the police on your family, he said. Not accusation, statement. I called the police on a trespass, I said, and on contractors who don't know my name. He nodded once. Not agreement, recognition. The twins like your place, he said. That bell helps. It does, I said. It tells you someone lives there. We stood. The quiet was almost companionable. Mom called from the kitchen. Peter, stop hoarding Nara. She can help me wrap bread. He half smiled at the phrase hoarding Nara like it was a weather pattern he'd interpret later. Then he stepped aside. In the kitchen, Mom handed me foil and plastic wrap and watched me cover the bread. Like she wanted to say something that might run away. I was scared, she said finally, very small. When Damon's hours dropped. When the landlord raised their rent. When Kara cried. I panicked. I made promises with your name on them. I know I said. Fear is a bad author. She winced. It is. She paused. I've been a mother a long time. She said, old pride shining through new shame. I forget that you don't need one anymore. I need a mother, I said, surprising both of us. Just not a landlord. She laughed a weak sound. I can knit, she offered. Maybe I'll knit the twins' hats. This is a reasonable pivot, I said. Aunt Jo came in and kissed the top of my head like we were Italian and in a movie. You did good, she murmured. You kept your voice while they restarted the orchestra. When it was time to go, the twins hugged me like octopuses. Damon squeezed my shoulder, then whispered, Tuesday at 6. Kara thanked me for the cheesecake without adding a barb. Mom sent me home with a container of roast and a wrong lid. Dad opened the door like a doorman who had just been tipped and was reevaluating his customer service. Back in my car, I sat for a moment, named what I felt tired hollow, strangely light, and turned the key. The night air on Birch Street was cooler than at my parents'. I carried the cake carrier up the stairs and set it on the counter. My phone buzzed. Damon, we made it home. Kids asleep in 9 minutes. Kara's working the school fundraiser on Thursday, so Tuesday childcare stands. Thank you. Me good. Text me the Riverdale unit number when you get keys. I'll label a housewarming plant, not Birch. Dana status, me cheesecake victory. Dad glitching. Kara grudging. Mom knitting hats. Damon holds a line. Dina sent 5 green check marks, then proud of you. Ely need the carrier back for tiny muffins by noon tomorrow. Payment accepted in gossip. Me, I'll pay in olives. Upstairs, the brass bell sang once soft. I brushed my teeth and washed the compote off my wrist and put my hair in a knot and sat on the edge of my bed while the house sighed the way old houses do when they're pleased. I opened my notebook and wrote, Family dinner, no explosions. Damon solid. Kara half-stepped toward accountability. Mom named fear. Dad not an apology but a crack. Then I drew a line under the page and wrote bigger. I am not the fuse. I underlined it once. Twice. Sleep came fast like a room you've earned in a hotel that finally has clean sheets in a quiet hall. And when I woke in the dark later to the sound of a train far away and an ambulance nearer, I didn't think about locks or boxes on porches. I thought about Tuesdays at 6 and a bell that says we live here and a cheesecake pan. I would return to a neighbor who changes bulbs without sermonizing. This is what a shift looks like up close. No trumpets, no cheering line of saints. Just fewer lies on a table, quieter forks numbers in a column, a note on the door that doesn't come again, and a father who circles a sentence in his head until it loses its teeth. Tomorrow we'd help the twins pick out library cards. Tomorrow Damon would ask his boss for the letter and not throw up. Tomorrow Mom would text a photo of a purple hat knit too tight. Tomorrow I'd send Mateo an email about something I'd been thinking before the storm, a second property. Someday somewhere less creaky maybe, with 3 units in a courtyard. Not now. Not yet. But the thought could return, and this time it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like a path that was still mine. Tonight, I let the house hold me. It had done its job. So had I. Tuesday at 6 came like a held promise. Damon knocked exactly on time. Hair still damp breath, fogging a little in the hallway. I opened the door and slid a notepad and pen toward him before he could sit. Budget first, then Riverdale paperwork, then we eat, I said. He nodded. Deal. We moved briskly. He'd canceled 2 subscriptions, set autopay for the utilities they'd keep, and printed a letter from his supervisor confirming the new schedule. It wasn't glamorous, but it was proof that action had replaced wishing. He signed the deposit loan agreement and shot me a look that said, I know what this means. I countersigned and put it in the folder. We ate soup and bread like normal people with calendars. At 8:59, I said time. He laughed because he recognized the boundary in it. We stacked bowls, rinsed them, and he left with a copy of the plan in his bag. On the way out, he paused, hand on the knob. I didn't know planning could feel strong, he said. It's a muscle, I said. It grows when you use it. When the door closed, the upstairs bell chimed as Amira came home. Theo's voice drifted down the stairwell. The house sounded occupied in the best way. In the morning, I carried Eli's cake carrier across the alley, with a jar of olives tucked like a small bribe beside it. He opened the door with paint on his forearms, and a grin that worked like coffee. Gossip as payment, he asked, taking the carrier. Gossip and olives, I said. Cheesecake was a hit. We didn't have to call the fire department. Always a win, he said. You look less like you're bracing for a wave. Smaller waves, I said, or I'm better at bracing. Both can be true, he said, setting the carrier aside. We're running the rec program tonight. If your brain needs something that isn't spreadsheets and feelings come by, we're playing horse with kids who spell it rose. Tempting, I said. I'll bring the wrong kind of orange slices. We'd barely hung up a flyer for the game when my email pinged with a subject line I didn't expect: notice of inspection city housing compliance. Someone had reported possible unpermitted alterations and unsafe conditions at my address. An inspector was scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. My stomach dropped, then steadied on a familiar shelf. This wasn't the first time someone tried to make paper tell a story. I forwarded the notice to Lara with a single-line new chapter. Then I walked upstairs and knocked. Amira opened the door with a tea mug balanced in one hand and a patient smile. Do you mind if a city inspector looks at the common areas Friday, I asked. Someone filed a complaint. We'll handle it. Of course, she said. We'll be home. We'll hide the plants that bite. Theo stepped into view and deadpanned, we only have 3, then grinned. The ease in their banter relaxed something in me I hadn't noticed was tight. Lara wrote back in minutes, I'll be there. Bring the lease, the last inspection report, and a list of what you've actually changed. We want to show, not argue. Show, not argue. A cousin of paper, just a different dialect. I called Matteo next and asked the question I hadn't wanted to ask. If there's an inspection note, will it hurt me later? Only if it's real, he said. If the report shows your place is in good shape, it helps. Keep every page. I printed the old occupancy certificate, the smoke detector receipts, the permit from when I'd had the electrical panel updated, and the plumber's invoice for the new shutoff valves. The stack looked boring and heavy, my favorite type of defense. That night, I walked to the church basement for Eli's rec program and held a bag of oranges while first graders argued about whether horse required an R before an O. Eli caught my eye over a kid's shoulder and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, and he shot back 2 thumbs up. Dina joined us with paper cups and a whistle she refused to use because I am not a gym teacher. I'm a pastry chef with opinions. She asked me which team to bet imaginary dollars on. I pointed to the kid who dribbled with his tongue out in pure concentration. He won. Dina paid me an applause. On my way home, I found a pink envelope tucked in my gate. No perfume this time. Inside a single sheet, inspection coming good. Unsafe for children to live near strangers. No signature. The handwriting leaned the way Kara's did when she was angry. I took a photo, slid it into the folder, and texted Damon, another note. I'm assuming you didn't write it. His reply came fast. No, I'll talk to her. Again. Friday arrived with the particular bright of a clear morning after a long rain. I made coffee strong enough to stand in a cup. Lara arrived in sneakers and a blazer, holding a slim portfolio like a sword that had eaten a salad. The inspector, Ms. Voss, showed up on the dot. No smile, no sneer, just a notebook and a body language that said her time is valuable. We walked the common stairwell. She ran a finger over a smoke detector and nodded when it chirped. She checked the handrail and said, "Good height." Upstairs, Amira and Theo said hello, held their two cats back like they were balloons, and answered questions like this was their job. Ms. Voss glanced at outlets, windows, locks, and the CO monitor. Everything was standard. Everything worked. What triggered this, I asked, careful to keep curiosity from sound like accusation. Anonymous complaint, Ms. Voss said, flipping a page. Said, unregistered rental dangerous wiring unfit for small children. Happens more than you'd think when there's a dispute. We still have to check. Do you note unfounded anywhere? Lara asked, professional sweet. In the comments, Ms. Voss said. She wrote, then added, this place is fine. Put fresh batteries in the upstairs smoke detector in 3 months. Don't paint, shut the windows. We like oxygen, Theo said gravely. Ms. Voss almost smiled. When she left, Lara touched the stack of documents. Keep it together, she said. This will help if more paper arrives in bad faith. It did help. It wasn't magic. It was true. I texted Damon a simple sentence. Inspection passed. He wrote back, good, we're packing. Kids think boxes are castles. Kara's, quieter. I let the ellipsis sit where he put it. The night before the move, I ordered pizza to Riverdale's parking lot because Damon and Kara had packed the kitchen first like everyone always does. Aunt Jo arrived with a carafe of lemon water and a bag of markers to label boxes in handwriting the size of billboards. The twins turned a stack of flattened cartons into sleds and slid across the living room until a neighbor downstairs stomped twice, and we redirected their energy to tape. Damon signed the last of the complex forms like a man getting married to a plan. Truck comes at 9, he said. If it doesn't, we call my friend who owns a landscaping trailer. He owes me from high school. Look at you, Aunt Jo said, poking his shoulder. Contingencies. He looked proud and a little shy. At 7 the next morning, the moving company called to say their truck had a broken belt. We can get there by 3, the dispatcher said, like it was reasonable. You can refund me by 3, Damon said, voice calm. We'll handle the move. He hung up and looked at me. Plan B? Aunt Jo clapped once. I'll get my van. It has seen pastries. It can see couches. Eli texted, our rec volunteers can carry. Payment muffins later. 10 minutes later, 3 teens and Eli appeared with work gloves and easy smiles. One kid shouted, we're Team Dumbbells, because apparently that was the name he'd chosen for himself. We formed a chain and moved boxes like a small friendly ant colony. The couch was the only real fight. It stuck in the stairwell like furniture always does. Eli said rotate in a voice that could lead an orchestra, and we rotated until it obeyed. Halfway through the day, a white sedan pulled in and idled. A woman with Kara's hairline and sharper eyes got out. I recognized her from one wedding photo, Kara's mother. She walked toward us with the air of someone who has never been told no in a tone she respected. Linda, Kara said, forcing a smile. You made it! Linda looked past her and fixed her gaze on me like I was the last free seat on a flight. You, she said. Me, I said. You're the one who called the police, she said, voice pitched to Carrie. On trespassers, I said. You refused children, she said, gesturing to the twins who were currently wearing boxes like robots. They have a home, I said, pointing at the open door. Right here. She frowned, then switched tactics like a driver changing lanes without signaling. Kara, she said, hand closing around her daughter's arm. This unit is fine for a year, but you deserve better. Your husband should have secured the duplex. Men who can't secure homes aren't. Damon stepped between them. He didn't raise his voice. Enough. Linda blinked. She hadn't expected that from the person she was cutting. Damon kept his tone even. We are not moving to Birch. We are moving here. We have a lease. We have a budget. We have a plan. If you're here to help us carry, thank you. If you're here to insult me or Nara, you can leave. Kara's head turned slowly toward him, like a sunflower toward a new sun. Linda's mouth opened and closed twice. Then she said, I'm taking the children for the afternoon, in a tone that brooked no argument, and marched the twins to her car with plastic precision. Kara looked torn between relief and an embarrassment. She watched them go, then let out a breath that sounded like a tire finding air. "Thank you," she said to Damon very quietly. He nodded, then grabbed the other end of the bookshelf. Eli murmured, "Nice boundary like a coach." By 3:30, the last box was inside. Aunt Jo wiped her forehead with a dish towel like an athlete with flair. "I'll make a grocery run," she announced. Milk, bread, coffee, toilet paper. One small joy item per kid. "Gummy bears!" Jamie yelled from under a fort that needed a building permit. "Grapes," Skye said, already bargaining like a diplomat. Kara leaned against the counter with a glass of water and looked at me over the rim. Her voice was tired and real. "I didn't know how to stop pushing," she said. "It felt like if I stopped, everything would fall." "Sometimes pushing is the thing that makes it fall," I said. "Sometimes asking works better." She nodded once. "I'm learning." I believed her that much and no more. It was enough for today. Back at Birch Street, I watered the plant in the kitchen window and opened my bank app. The first rent from upstairs had arrived on time, just like the lease said it would. The line item sat there, quiet and powerful. Damon's first repayment transfer sat under it, smaller but crisp. I filed both email receipts. I wrote "received" on the paper copy and slid it into the folder. It felt like a bridge between chaos and order. The city mailed the inspection report 2 days later. I scanned it, saved it in 3 places, and printed one for the binder. "No violations noted," it said in dry, perfect language. Follow-up in 24 months. Someone had written, "Anonymous complaint found unsubstantiated," in a neat hand. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I liked the vibe. On Thursday, I stopped by Riverdale after work with a plant labeled "Not Birch" on a tongue-in-cheek tag. The twins laughed like I'd told the funniest joke in the state. Kara set the plant on the kitchen counter and adjusted it until the leaves looked like they were listening. Damon taped the repayment schedule to the inside of a cabinet door with the reverence of a man hanging art. "Do you want help assembling the bunk beds?" I asked. "I can pretend to read instructions." "Please," Kara said immediately, then made a face at her own eagerness. "Sorry, that sounded needy." It sounded like a sentence I said. "Normal is allowed." We built the bunk beds with only 1 expletive and 2 extra bolts that didn't belong to anything. The twins climbed the ladder like mountain goats. Damon caught Skye's ankle gently and said "slow feet" in a new dad voice that wasn't performative, just there. When I left, the hallway smelled like carpet glue and the neighbor's chili. It smelled like an apartment building that might hold. Friday morning, Pastor Green left a voicemail. "I wanted you to know I corrected the story where it was wrong," he said, voice careful. "I won't be the person who makes your property a sermon illustration. Also, the rummage sale made $340. The bell you like is not for sale." I laughed out loud at my kitchen table and texted Eli, "Your church bell is safe. The trash can volunteer sends her regards." He replied with a photo of the rec room stacked with soccer balls and chewed cones. "Bring muffins. Kids think they're currency." Saturday, Mateo called. "I know your hands are full," he said, "but you asked about the next step when things settled a little. There's a 3-unit on Maple priced below comps because it needs cosmetic work, not structural. No rush, just putting it on your radar." "I'm not buying this month," I said, "but I want to keep the brain muscle warm. Send me the numbers." He did. Rents in the area, tax history, roof age, boiler maintenance. I read it like bedtime stories. It didn't make me itch. It made me curious. That difference is important. On Sunday, I painted my front door a soft blush, Skye's idea from weeks ago lodged in my head, and refused to leave. The color looked like hope in the shade and like humor in the sun. Eli gave me a thumbs up from the alley. Amira sent a text, "That door is a kind house's door." Theo added a heart that somehow didn't feel corny. In the afternoon, Mom texted a photo of a lumpy purple hat with a caption, "First try." "Too tight. We'll make bigger. Progress comes in yarn, too." Dad sent me an article about the wealth benefits of multifamily home ownership, as if he'd invented the genre, and added, "You've done well." It wasn't an apology. It was a step onto the right side of a sentence. I answered with a thumbs up and a link to a budgeting guide Damon could use. We were speaking in articles. It beat speaking in threats. That night, as I finished labeling the porch light switch like the nerd I am, the stairwell camera pinged. For a second, my chest tightened, the old reflex. The screen showed Damon at the door, holding 2 small containers, and wearing a face like a kid who'd brought home a report card worth framing. I made soup, he said when I opened. Repayment plan includes soup. And a tire rotation, I said. I remember. He handed me the containers. Kara found a part-time at the school office. She starts Monday. We fought once this week, but then we wrote down the fight and made rules about it. He looked embarrassed. Is that a thing? It is now, I said. Congratulations on inventing a mature marriage in 3 days. He laughed. We're trying. He glanced at my door. Nice color. Sky's suggestion, I said. Tell her the paint store called it Morning Petal, and I felt tricked into paying extra. He grinned, then turned serious. I told Mom and Dad we're not talking about your place anymore, he said. If they start, I say, not our house. It's working. What do they do? Mom cries, he said. Dad sulks. Then they ask about the twins and the weather. It's normal. Normal is underrated, I said. Want to come in and taste your own soup? He did. We sat at my table like kids home from school. He told me about a new inventory system at the warehouse. I told him about a spreadsheet that finally balanced. We clinked spoons like people in a pantomime of toasting. He left with my hug and his container and a reminder on his phone, Tuesday 6 p.m. resumes. When the door closed, I wrote 3 lines on a fresh page. Crash attempts, utilities, paper boxes, complaint. Countermeasures, locks, leases, letters, neighbors, status holding. Then I drew a small door and colored it pink. The next morning, a letter arrived addressed to occupant in that generic font that makes you assume it's junk. I almost tossed it. Habit stopped me. Inside a simple thank you from the city, anonymous complaints help us keep housing safe. False complaints strain resources. Please consider this before you call. It was boilerplate. It also felt like the universe slipping a note under my mat that said, "We saw what happened. We've got a file on it." I tucked it behind the inspection report. I made another pot of coffee. I went to work. The week after that, the school called me to confirm Tuesday babysitting details because Kara had listed me as an emergency contact without asking. I stared at the email and counted to 10. Then I replied, "Please remove me as emergency contact. I'm available Tuesdays 6-9 only as agreed." 2 minutes later, Kara texted, "Sorry. Fixed." The apology was clean. I pocketed it without polishing. A small sharp thing happened Thursday. Pink stationery again. "You'll be sorry when you need us." It was placed under my windshield wiper at the grocery store. It annoyed me more than it scared me. I took a picture. I put it in the folder. I refused to narrate it out loud where it could grow teeth. Saturday, Eli asked if I had any spare folding chairs for a parent meeting at the rec room. I did. I brought 6 and stayed for the beginning. Parents sat on metal chairs and nodded, while Eli talked about supervising a field trip with very little money and very many opinions. A mom in a blue hoodie asked good questions about safety. A dad in a work shirt said he could borrow cones from his job. I looked around the room and realized this is what shared actually looks like. Not the taking sort, but the carrying sort. On my way back, I ran into Pastor Green hauling 2 sagging trash bags that smelled like church coffee and paper plates. He said, "You should teach a class on boundaries." I laughed and told him he could teach one on how to hold your tongue until it catches up. He nodded. "The choir wants a copy of your cheesecake recipe." "They'll have to marry Dina," I said, "or bribe her with blueberries." By the end of the month, routines had replaced adrenaline. On Tuesdays, Damon brought his laptop and we controlled variables. On Thursdays, I either watched the twins or sat on my couch and did nothing, which I wrote on my calendar, as if nothing were a scheduled appointment, because it is. On Sundays, I swept the porch and listened to the bell upstairs and watered a plant that refused to die, just to spite the odds. On random afternoons, Mateo sent me a property listing, and I either deleted it or read it, and practiced not fantasizing. Choice is a muscle, too. There were slips. Mom sent me a photo of a house in our old neighborhood with a caption, "This would be perfect for you and for Damon, if you ever share." I replied with a photo of my pink door and the words, "I'm home." Dad called to ask if I could review a handyman contract for a friend, as if I had a side business called Woman Who Reads Fine Print because she's single. I told him kindly to hire a professional. He grumbled and then did it. Kara posted once a half-sad, half-sly message about how family isn't always blood. Damon texted her 3 words. "Take it down." She did, Later, she posted a photo of the twins on the Riverdale playground with a caption that said, "Home." I tapped the heart and didn't overinterpret. Aunt Jo came by with bread and a story about a client who tried to pay her an exposure. "You can't spread exposure on toast," she said, buttering thick. "But you can spread boundaries." We ate and taught each other the names of cheeses and let the afternoon be quiet. 2 small significant things closed the loop. First, the county mailed me a stamped order granting expungement of wrongful recording, complete with a judge's name and a seal that looked like it belonged to a serious bird. I framed a copy and hung it near the door, not where a visitor would see it, but where I did every time I left. I called it my exit reminder. It reminded me that I could step out without flinching. Second, the twins brought me a drawing. 2 squares with windows. 1 door pink, 1 door blue. 4 stick figures. A bell drawn as a circle with lines for sound. Under it, in Sky's very careful letters, "We live here now. Jamie added a dinosaur because you should." I stuck it to my fridge with a magnet and stood there longer than a reasonable person stands in front of a refrigerator. By then, the weight had shifted. Not gone. Moved. Carried in different hands. The sound of it changed like a truck going from second to third gear. I called Mateo and said I wanted to walk the Maple Triplex. He met me there with a binder, like a patient friend. The place smelled like old lemon cleaner and someone's aunt. The floors sloped half an inch in the back bedroom. The kitchen needed love. The boiler made a noise like a swallowed sneeze. The yard had enough room for a grill and 2 chairs, and an argument that resolves itself. "Not today," I said, running a hand over the banister that wanted sanding. "But maybe soon. It's the right kind of ugly. The kind you can fix," he said. "The kind no one else tried to turn into moral leverage," I said. He smiled carefully. We walked out into the kind of cold that asks if you have a scarf. I did. I went home to Birch and put the kettle on. I sent Amira a text asking if their bell needed oil. Theo sent back a video of it ringing just fine. On my porch, I brushed away a leaf and saw a small chalk drawing I hadn't noticed. A heart. Inside it, a simple word, "Hi." I don't know which kid or neighbor drew it. I knew the message. I answered out loud like a fool, "Hi." Then I shut my pink door and locked it, because love and locks aren't opposites. They're housemates. We still had 6 weeks of Tuesday nights to do. We still had an envelope of receipts to reconcile. We still had a father with a tone, a mother with a reflex, a sister-in-law learning, a brother practicing. We still had a neighborhood with bells and cones and muffins and paint cans used as weights. We had the beginnings of a new equilibrium, not declared but lived. And we had the last part to write. Next comes the quiet part. People underestimate days that are almost boring if you don't remember what chaos costs. Next comes the shift from defense to maintenance. Next comes the part where a person who protected a house remembers how to live in it without flinching at every creak. But before that, I washed the soup container Damon left on my counter, dried it with a towel that was too nice for soup, and put it by the door. Tuesday at 6, it would go back full. 6 months passed. The bell upstairs still rang soft. My door stayed pink. Rent hit on the 1st. Damon's repayment posted on the 5th. Life stopped sounding like a siren and started sounding like a calendar. Small proof showed up in small ways. I slept through creaks. I left my phone in another room. I walked past the evidence folder 2 days in a row without touching it. When the motion alert pinged, it was a raccoon with opinions, or a package I'd actually ordered. Riverdale settled around Damon and Kara like a coat that finally fit. The twins learned the route to the playground by heart. Kara's hours at the school office went from tentative to steady. Damon's supervisor put him on a logistics certification track and gave him a badge that beeped at doors. They hung their first photo twins under a too bright sky. And it didn't need to be in my windows to be real. One mild Tuesday, a new rhythm tested itself. A pipe under the upstairs kitchen sink started a slow, smug leak. Theo texted a photo of the offending P-trap and the words, "We caught it fast. Towels down. We can wait for a plumber or try a fix. Your call." That sentence felt like a hug. It also felt like responsibility. I called Eli. He arrived with paste and a ring of washers like a strange crown. We shut off the water and laid towels like sandbags. Amira brought tea. Theo held a flashlight with the reverence of a surgeon's assistant. The fix took 20 minutes and 2 jokes about ancient plumbing gods. As we cleaned up, my father's truck eased to the curb. I hadn't called him. I hadn't posted. He walked up the steps carrying a toolbox older than me and stopped when he saw the neat tidy of a problem that had already been handled. "Leak?" he asked. "Small," I said. "We got it." He took in the towels, the shiny new P-trap, the way Theo had already labeled the shutoff valves with painter's tape. He nodded once, approval grudging and sincere. "Good," he said. He set the toolbox down anyway. "You should keep Teflon tape under the sink." "I have some," I said, and opened a drawer to show him like I was presenting a report card. He smiled despite himself. A small thing. A human thing. He stayed to change a flickering porch bulb, not because I asked, because he wanted to use his hands for something that wasn't pointing. When he finished, he glanced at my lock. He didn't ask for a key. He patted the frame like you do a good dog and said, "Solid." "We like solid," I said. He cleared his throat, looked past me at the brass bell, and said it like he'd practiced in the car. I was wrong about the paper. I waited. He kept going. It made me feel strong to write something and file it. Like I was doing something. I wasn't. "I made work for you and the court." He rubbed his jaw. "I won't do that again." "Thank you," I said, not gushing, not icy, just thanks. On his way down the steps, he stopped and looked back. "Your mother knit hats that actually fit," he said, tone wry. "You'll see them Sunday." We did. At the Twins Park birthday, Mom held up 2 purple hats that didn't strangle anyone's head. Second attempt, she announced proud and sheepish. The twins wore them for 6 minutes, then stuffed them in pockets and chased a kite. Kara passed out cupcakes she'd frost-schooled from a video. Damon grilled hot dogs and did not burn them. Aunt Jo brought a loaf the size of a shoe and used it to silence a potential argument by stuffing Dad's mouth. Kara's mother, Linda, came late, took one look at the pink door in the photo on my phone and said, "That's an unserious color." I didn't explain myself. Eli, who'd joined us with cones and a first aid kit, said serious people have pink doors all the time, like it was in the Constitution. Linda blinked. The subject changed. Halfway through the party, Kara sidled up to me near the picnic table, where the mustard bottles held court. She didn't reach for my arm. She didn't move into my space. She held a plate like a shield and spoke in a voice that sounded like someone who'd had a long talk with a mirror. "I'm sorry for the memo," she said. "And the boxes, and the notes. I kept thinking if I pushed hard enough, the world would bend." She shook her head. "You made it stop." "I made it stay straight," I said. "That, yes." She exhaled. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say the words to your face." I looked at her. No big speech arrived. Relief did. "Thank you," I said. "That helps." We stood there, 2 women who had tried different tools on the same problem. Fear had made us both clumsy. Boundaries had made us both clearer. She tapped her plate with a fork. "The twins like your bell," she said. "They say it sounds like a store for good people." "It's the Bell's PR team," I said. She laughed brief and real. After cake, Mom took a photo of all of us at the top of the slide. When she sent it that night, she didn't crop me out. Progress is small and petty and important. Money moved in a new way, too. Damon didn't miss a repayment. When he got a small bonus, he sent an extra $50 without making it a parade. Kara's paycheck covered groceries and aftercare. Their home stopped being an emergency and became a place where people hung coats. We kept our Tuesday nights. We set goals, hit some missed, some adjusted. Once he brought a list of jobs, and I circled 3 and said, "Call tomorrow." He said, "My stomach hurts," and then called anyway. He didn't die. He got 2 interviews. He learned that dread whispers and numbers don't. On one of those Tuesdays, Pastor Green emailed me a draft for the church bulletin. "Boundaries is care," the heading read. He wanted to host a workshop. He asked if I'd sit on a panel with a social worker and a family attorney. I stared at the subject line and felt my throat close. Then I wrote back, "I'll bring dessert and a few sentences." "I won't be your poster child." "Deal," he replied. The workshop filled the fellowship hall with people who needed to say no and didn't know how to start. Laura gave them scripts. The social worker gave them language for guilt. I passed plates and said one thing. Write down what you can give without breaking. Read it when someone hands you their storm. People wrote, people cried, people ate cheesecake. It was the holiest I've ever seen a folding table look. Mateo, relentless and kind, kept sending properties. Not many, not flashy. 2. I turned down because the roofs were tired and the numbers lied. 1 I toured twice. The maple tray triplex stayed in my mind like a song that wouldn't quit. I ran it through my spreadsheet so many times the cells started dreaming of me. Lara reviewed the title and made a face at a weird lien from 2011. The seller cleared it. Mateo warned me about the boiler sneezing, and a contractor named Bree wrote an estimate that was fair and blunt. I didn't rush. I let boredom do its work on urgency. Then I made an offer with contingencies you could file under grown-up. It was accepted. I didn't post a key photo. I didn't cry on a sidewalk. I stood in Maple's small courtyard and watched a neighbor hang laundry across a second-floor line. The air smelled like old soap and dirt. It felt good, real, fixable. I made a plan. Cosmetic first, safety first, no granite, no showroom lights. We painted trim. We cleaned until the baseboards remembered the color they were born. Bree swapped the boiler's sneeze for a hum. I learned the names of screws I'd only ever pointed at. I paid people on time and brought water. Small crews came and went. Eli stopped by one evening to lend a longer ladder and left with leftover pizza and the satisfaction of having corrected someone's caulk. Dina declared the courtyard crispy enough for chairs and dragged 2 from her shop with a thermos of coffee and 2 croissants. We sat and stared at nothing. I took a picture and didn't share it anywhere. Sometimes content is just being there. My parents drove by Maple once. They didn't stop. Later, Dad left a voicemail that said, "Proud of you," like it cost him $1. Mom texted a link to a plant she thought would like dappled light. Kara replied to a photo of the courtyard with a single word, "nice." Damon sent a picture of the twins holding a congratulations auntie sign that had 3 too many hearts and so much tape it could have survived a hurricane. I hung their sign in Maple's stairwell. It made the paint look friendlier. There were still tests. Linda left a comment under one of Kara's posts that said, "Some people forget who kept them warm." Kara deleted it. She didn't call me. Damon didn't text me. My phone didn't vibrate with the panic of other people's sentences. That silence felt like progress with a bow. Mom started inviting me to lunch without agendas and learned we could talk about things that weren't my house or my ring finger. Dad asked me to look at his new shed plans and didn't bristle when I said, "Hire a contractor for the electrical." He did. Later, he sent me a photo of a legal permit stuck to the shed window with blue tape and the words, "See like I was the judge." Aunt Jo taught a little class at the community center called Fair Favors. She used bread metaphors and had people pass a loaf until only the heel was left. "If you give the center away because you think you're generous," she said, slicing the heel for herself, "don't cry when you're chewing crust at midnight. Learn to cut even pieces. That's love." People nodded. People stopped volunteering their houses to fix other people's panic. Eli's program grew. Team Dumbbells got 2 new kids and lost 1 to a different after-school club. He asked if Maple's courtyard could host a movie night. "We'll keep it quiet," he said. "Neighborhood popcorn, no sermons." We set up a sheet, borrowed a projector, and watched a cartoon about a snail that refuses to be a mailbox. Parents brought lawn chairs and stories. Someone's uncle tuned a guitar. The bell in my other building rang in my head like an echo under the night. Amira and Theo planted herbs in the stairwell window. They started a quiet game of leave a note, get a note, where we traded tiny kindnesses on yellow Post-its. "You brought our packages in, thanks." Radiator clanked. We bled it quieter now. "Your basil smells like a good decision. Nothing large, everything steady." One weekday evening around dusk, a small knock came at my door. Jamie stood there with Sky behind him and a paper bag that looked like it had already been opened, because 5-year-olds don't believe closures are real. "We brought rocks," he announced. Sky nodded. "We found them at the park. We washed them. They are smooth." They held out a hand each. 2 round stones sat in their palms warm from being held. One had a stripe like a bandage. One was plain and heavy. "I need these," I said solemn. "We know," Sky said. "They are for the bell shelf." We put them there. They looked like punctuation 2 small periods for a long sentence that had finally learned to stop shouting. After they left, I made tea and opened my notebook. I wrote clean lines and no speeches. Mortgage paid. Rent steady. Repayment on track. Maple occupied soon. Family quieter. Then for me, I wrote, you can build without apologizing. I slept the way people sleep when the house agrees with them. The workshop at the church took place in late summer. Sun through old windows. Folding chairs that have heard confessions. I watched people practice saying, I can't do that, and followed it with I can do this instead. Their faces shifted. Relief looks like someone taking off a backpack they didn't remember putting on. After Pastor Green thanked me at the door, hands sticky with lemonade. Your cheesecake was effective, he said. Sugar helps difficult sentences go down, I said. He laughed. You're good at this. I have no plans to be better, I said. I would like fewer stories to need it. He nodded, a little sad, a little proud. May your boundaries grow boring. At Maple, I met the first tenants for Unit 2, a nurse who likes early mornings and a line cook who collects old postcards. They read the lease line by line. They asked sane questions. They signed. The courtyard felt like it heard a new name and smiled. I called my bank from the porch and set up a maintenance fund transfer that moved a small amount every month into a separate account labeled Inevitable. That label kept me honest. Things break. It's not a betrayal, it's physics. One afternoon, Lara stopped by Maple to drop off a notarized copy of something I would have lost without her. She stood in the courtyard with a can of seltzer and said, You're good at being boring. I laughed. She meant the paperwork, the careful clauses, the way my leases had clear end dates. Boring, she said again, is where your wealth hides. Put it on a mug, I said. I already did, she said deadpan and pulled a mug from her bag. Boring and rich on one side. Spicy and broke on the other. A gift from my office to your kitchen. I snorted. I'll drink both sides. We clinked cans. She left. I added the mug to my cabinet where Damon's repayment schedule lived. It looked both absurd and correct. In September, Dina hosted a block party for no reason. People brought folding tables and dishes their grandmothers would have recognized. Eli organized a chalk zone. I set out a plate of olives and a bowl that said, not for keys. It made 3 people smile and 1 person blush. Dad came late and didn't bring a speech. He brought a power strip and used it to fix a music problem. Mom showed up with a cake shaped like a hat because she'd found a new trick and wanted someone to clap. We clapped. Kara danced with the twins to an old song about sunshine. Damon handed out waters like a man who has carried boxes and knows thirst. Aunt Jo took one look at the Not for Keys bowl and laughed so hard she had to sit down. As the streetlights blinked on, Ely tapped a glass with a spoon. Not to sermonize, to toast. To the people who carry without stealing, he said simply. To neighbors who show up with ladders and leave with leftovers. To bells. To doors that look like jokes and act like promises. People cheered. I felt my chest echo. Later, as we stacked chairs and coiled cords, Dad came to stand beside me. You know, he said, eyes on nothing in particular. Your grandmother once told me, the only thing worse than being taken advantage of is believing that's what love is. He glanced at me. I didn't listen when I should have. You're listening now, I said. He said slow, but He didn't hug me. I didn't need him to. He put the power strip in my hand and said, keep this, for the next party. It was an odd heirloom. It felt right. I wish I could tell you no one ever tested a lock again. That every holiday at my parents' house was a hymn. That Linda learned to use her voice for blessing and not barbs. People are not scripts. They change in drips, not declarations. There are still texts that land wrong. There are still afternoons when I walk fast past the recorder's office because my body remembers paper that bit. But the weight is different. It's distributed. It's held by more hands that don't crush what they carry. I can go a week without thinking about worst-case scenarios and spend that brain space on paint colors no one will insult. Maple has 3 units filled now. One tenant brought me a sourdough starter with a name. One asked if he could hang a hammock in the courtyard, and I said yes, because joy is a maintenance strategy. The boiler still hums. The hall still smells like something old and clean. The rent pays for itself and a little more. The inevitable fund grows like a plant you water and don't watch. Burrich is still my home. The pink door faded a shade in the sun, and I like it better. The bell upstairs still rings soft. Amira left me a sprig of rosemary with a note that said, for soup or strength. Theo helps Eli coach when he can. Dina's pastry case still makes teenagers silent. Aunt Jo's bread still has a crust you respect. Lara still sends emails with subject lines that sound like legal haikus. Mateo still appends a spreadsheet to every greeting. Damon still shows up on Tuesdays with his laptop and a question. Kara still stares at the budget like it's a relief map and now sees roots instead of cliffs. Mom still knits. Dad still thinks a toolbox is a love language. I understand both better now. And me, I own 2 buildings, but that's the small part. I own my time. I own my yes and my no. I own the way my voice sounds when I use both. If you've stayed with me this far, you know this story wasn't about becoming a landlord. It was about refusing to be a fuse. Houses are just where the lessons land. Locks are how you practice a sentence until your mouth knows it without help. Here's the part where I turn to you. Because this isn't just my street. What's the boundary you've been afraid to say out loud because you worry it will make you look cold? What would it sound like if you wrote it on paper, put a date on it, and lived like it was true? What tiny inevitable fund could you build? Not just money, but time, energy, respect. So you stop paying emergencies with your peace. Tell me in the comments, because someone reading might need your words the way I needed Lara's calm emails, or Aunt Jo's bread sermon, or Eli's quiet ladder. And if this helped, hit subscribe so we can keep adding bricks to this little neighborhood of stories where kindness doesn't ask you to hand over your keys. The bell upstairs just chimed. Someone got home. Someone is safe. The house knows our names now. I think that's the whole point.